Ask any card game nerd what the best indie deck building game is on video game consoles, and you're going to hear Slay the Spire a lot. And for the most part, them nerds are right. And scene. Cut to black. Nothing more to say, right? Though this Titan is mostly flawless, I can't say that I would recommend it to the casual gamer. Yeah, it can be pretty user-friendly, but there's something about its gritty presentation and complexity that's off-putting to those gamers who are new to the deck-building world. What if I told you that there's a game that has more style, vibrance, and charm? A game whose beats make you want to twerk your ass off. A game that takes the concept of deck building one step further. A deck builder with dice. Dicey Dungeons isn't new to the scene by any means. She turned 2 over the summer, and I'm still baffled that few people give her the praise that she deserves. I'm bracing myself for the hate mail, but I honestly think this game is packaged a lot better for mass audiences than Slay the Spire. Dicey is that shining beacon of light in a sea of deck building games that try to out-deck build each other by just focusing on deck building. She said, why not reinvent the wheel, and gracefully mix dice rolls with cards? There's something to say about a game that brings new life to a genre, and mama, I live. Dicey doesn't try to force a complex story down your throat. The 6 playable characters are literally turned into dice and have to escape a purgatory-esque game show. We're given subtle hints as to why they're trapped in this infinite loop at the beginning of each chapter segment, but it's not really anything that makes us overly connected with them or really get to know who they are. They're really just there as a means to play the game. This is something I actually appreciate because I'm not really looking for too much of a story when playing a game like this. Running this game show is none other than Lady Luck, and she is a red-headed diva. There's not really a lot of insight as to who she is or why you're trapped. It's almost an adorable version of Squid Game, as you're initially promised some grand reward for winning. Every time you manage to complete a chapter and finish a challenge, Lady Luck makes you spin a wheel to see if you escape. Obviously, it's rigged. She goes all showcase showdown, the price is wrong, bitch, and informs you that you'll have to do it all over again. This adds the link to the game as it takes each character a few times of having to loop back through the competition before they realize they're being duped. Story aside, Dicey Dungeons is a beautiful game. It's really hard to capture its full aesthetic. Foster's home for imaginary friends, but also a board game, but also a game show, but also a deck builder, but also with dice, but make it fashion? If you've ever watched the cartoon Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, you'll quickly recognize why I'm making the comparison. The monsters are cartoony and wonderful. Everything has an adorable charm, and it almost makes you forget that these monsters are here to kill you, not cuddle you. Shout out to my man Marshmallow for making me cackle. Poor little guy. He's gonna be a crispy little s'more someday. Honestly, if Blue, Wilt, and Eduardo from Foster's made a cameo in the game, I wouldn't question it. Also, if anybody wants to make a Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends game, please take all my money. The music is a treat as well, and it's the game's biggest asset. I really don't know how to describe it. Jazzy synth pop? I don't know. It's great though. Hopping into each battle is such a joy. It's super upbeat and fun, and it really makes you want to dance. Like, I'm literally twerking on my cat right now while working on this review and listening to the soundtrack. It slapped so hard that I don't think I could play it right before bed because I'd probably be popping and or locking to the tunes all night. But hey, it's a good time all around. I think this is one of the ways that Dicey stands above Slay the Spire. You can talk about all the deep mechanics in Slay the Spire until the cows come home. What is that phrase anyway? Like, who actually says that? Anyway, the first thing that newer gamers notice is style. It's not that Slay the Spire isn't pretty, it's just that Dicey is prettier. From maps to monsters, everything is brimming with bold colors and energy. Dicey's features are reminiscent of great games like Persona 5 with its red, black, and white embellishments and catchy bops. You know, the things that make a great game that much greater. Dicey Dungeons starts out very similar to other deck building games. You build a limited deck as you progress through the dungeon that hopefully combos together in order to bring success. The difference here lies in that you can't actually play your cards unless the requirements match the dice you roll. Some cards require exact dice rolls, like the appropriately named 6-shooter, while others have a minimum or maximum value. I've heard some people complain that relying on dice rolls leaves a little too much up to the RNG gods, but I don't see it as being any different than not getting the cards you need when you draw cards in any other deck builder. The nice thing about rolling dice instead of drawing cards is that you always know your deck. It almost never changes, and you can use it to change dice values like bump a dice value up or down one, or split a dice into two. I love this mechanic because it really allows for some great flexibility with your rolls, and allows you to land some downright nasty combos to launch on your foes. Varying playstyles of each character is also a huge standout. I know that sounds like something you could probably say about any game that lets you pick different characters. If you play something like a fighting game, it's true that each character has different button inputs, but at the end of the day, it's all the same kicks, punches, and throws to beat your opponent. Dicey's 6 characters didn't actually feel like that, and they really make you experience the game in different ways. Sure, they all level up and acquire new dice the same way, but how they do it is completely different. If you're looking for a more straightforward, no frills, this is how you play the basic game, the warrior is a good choice and serves as the tutorial character until you get the basic mechanics down. In true warrior fashion, a lot of the gear he gets revolves around block and smash mechanics. The second character, the thief, adds a few new technical pieces into the mix. A lot of his equipment, such as his starting daggers, favor low dice rolls, so he gets a lot of options to split, duplicate, and bump his dice. He also steals a different piece of equipment from his foes every round in true thief fashion. The next 3 characters really start to show the diversion from the standard formula. The inventor plays like the warrior, but they break down pieces of equipment after each battle into special abilities, so you're constantly cycling between new equipment. You also need to think about if you're going to fight all of the battles on each floor, because you need to make sure that you have some good equipment for the boss. On my first run, I actually ran out of equipment by the time I fought the boss. Whoops. The robot, my personal favorite, has a gambling mechanic built into their dice rolls. They have a bar on the side of the screen that shows the maximum total that their rolls can add up to. If you go too high, you have a CPU meltdown and can't do anything. If you hit your quota though, you get a jackpot, and you can use a special ability. The witch's mechanic is a little weirder than the others. She can only have 6 items at a time and puts them in a spell book, and only uses 4 spells at a time? It kind of mimics Dungeons & Dragons spell slots idea. I found her to be the most complicated character to play, so good luck if you choose to play as her. On top of this, each character gets extra dice as they level up, and they all have their own special limit break when they've taken too much damage to turn the tide of the battle. Mix in monsters having their own decks, treasure chests, equipment upgrades, crazy status effects, evil apples, and a plethora of diverse equipment, and you've got yourself a party. I found Dicey to be the perfect pick up and put down game. Each run through the dungeon lasts anywhere between 30 to 60 minutes, depending on how quickly you get mutilated by the enemies. Tack that on to 6 different characters with 6 different episodes apiece, and there's plenty of game to go around, and plenty of opportunities to die. A lot. Fortunately, there's a lot of variety to each playthrough. It could be easy for a game like this to get boring after a few runs as you become more familiar with the game and are constantly collecting the same items. However, every episode beyond the first completely changes up the items, status effects, equipment, and rules to keep it interesting and keep you on your toes. By the 4th, 5th, and 6th episodes, monsters are stronger, a new set of equipment replaces the old stuff, and new rules appear each floor you complete. The balance is mostly fair, as the game gives you the opportunity to get your feet wet before it throws a wrench in what you know. This is another reason why Dicey is a strong contender for the best deck builder. Other games in the genre rely on randomly generated dungeons to make the experience different, but the core experience is completely the same across each playthrough. Dicey makes each episode unique by instituting new rules that make you have to change your approach. Like, sure, the warrior's premise might be straightforward, but one of his episodes is particularly nasty, as every time he levels up, he actually loses hit points. Or the thief, rolling only 1s on his first turn and having the rolls increase by 1 each time from there. Other games in the genre tend to become stagnant once you figure out how to play the character. Dicey just does it better by constantly making its players adapt to new rules that make you think differently for each episode. There's a lot of good to soak in, but as with any game, Dicey Dungeons isn't without its areas that could use some improvement. For instance, sometimes it feels like no matter which items you grab on a run or how you build your deck, you'll still lose. I know that this is a symptom of a bigger problem for all roguelikes. Losing adds padding to any game's length, but I feel like it hits a little harder when it's a deck builder. Because there are limited spaces and directions you can travel on the board game map, there were several instances where dropping onto a new floor meant a quick game over because all of the healing items were blocked behind an elite monster. It's not game breaking, but it can be annoying when it happens. Also, I know it fits the story, but there is no carrying progress over from the previous run, whether it was a success or a failure. Sometimes in roguelike games, you get the option of carrying over some progress. In Hades, for example, your character gets to keep certain equipment or abilities for the next run, or you're given a stash of money to buy things right away. On the flip side, starting fresh can be a good thing as well. Carrying over progress such as equipment you use might overcomplicate Dicey Dungeons, or might sway you from trying a new approach on your next run. I really think not carrying over progress really helps streamline the overall experience. Another part that's a bit tedious is the approach to completing the game. You can't tackle the final boss until you complete all of the runs. This can be pretty frustrating as some of the episodes are pretty challenging. However, the final run has a super unique twist that ultimately culminates in everyone being able to get the revenge on Lady Luck that they want. So, it's worth sticking around until the end. I wouldn't have to think twice about recommending Dicey Dungeon to a friend. It's approachable, it's adorable, it's twerkable, it has a good level of challenge that eases you in so it can chew you up and spit you back out. The villain is a boss bitch, its rules make it so you have to think just a little differently each time you play, and it's really just overall a wacky good time. And that's more than I can say about some other games in the genre. Alright, I'm gonna get out of here before all the haters show up. Go buy Dicey Dungeons. Yahtzee.